There are some things you forget with time. Childhood fears, nightmares that used to keep you up at night. But then, there are things you don't forget. Because they won't let you. I used to think he was just a bad dream. A shadow in the corner of my room. But Mr. Smile, he was real. And if you ever wake up in the middle of the night and smell something sweet, like cotton candy, whatever you do, don't look. Welcome to Eerie Short and Scary Stories, where the shadows whisper and nightmares linger long after the story ends. Some tales are just fiction, but some stay with you forever. Turn off the lights. Get comfortable. And remember, not every story is just a story. I was 6 years old when I first saw him. Back then, I didn't know his name. I didn't know what he wanted. All I knew was that I was afraid. My parents thought I was just having nightmares. They sent me to a child psychologist, some nice woman with glasses who asked me to draw pictures of what I saw at night. I remember gripping a crayon and pressing so hard it broke in half as I tried to sketch his face. The big, round eyes. The grin that never wavered. The way he just stood there, watching. I stopped talking about him after a while. Not because I stopped seeing him, but because I learned that no one would believe me. It always started the same way. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, feeling off. Like the air in my room had thickened. The silence would be heavy, pressing down on me. No rustling leaves outside, no hum of the fridge down the hall, just nothing. Then, the smell would come. Sweet, almost sickly. Like cotton candy left out in the sun too long. It would fill my nostrils, clinging to the back of my throat. I never had candy in my room. I never ate sweets before bed. But still, it was there. And then, I'd see him. At first, just a shape at the foot of my bed. A shadow darker than the rest of the room. My eyes would adjust, and slowly, he'd come into focus. He was tall. Too tall. Lanky, like his limbs were stretched just a little too far. His face was the worst part. Round, pale, almost cartoonish. And the grin. That awful, frozen grin. He never moved. Never spoke. Just stood there, watching. I wanted to scream. Every muscle in my body begged me to run, to throw the blankets over my head, to do something. But I couldn't. I was frozen, locked in place by the weight of his stare. The first time it happened, I convinced myself I was dreaming. I closed my eyes as tight as I could, counted to 10 in my head, and when I opened them, he was gone. The next night, he was back. And the night after that. And the night after that. I tried telling my parents, but they brushed it off. Just a bad dream, my mother said, ruffling my hair. Maybe we should stop letting him watch cartoons before bed, my father muttered. I knew better. I knew what I saw. Mr. Smile was real. And he wasn't going anywhere. The first time I realized I wasn't alone, I felt a kind of relief. The kind that comes when you think, maybe I'm not crazy after all. It happened during one of my therapy sessions. I sat there, clutching a stuffed bear I was too old for, while my psychologist asked me the usual questions. How was school? Was I still having nightmares? Was there anything I wanted to talk about? I didn't want to talk about Mr. Smile. I'd learned my lesson. But then she did something different. She set her notepad down, leaned in slightly, and said, "Have you ever heard of any other kids seeing him?" My fingers tightened around the bear's worn-out fur. Other kids? She told me she'd spoken to a few children in town who described something similar. A man with a big smile. Standing in their room at night. Watching. I should have felt better. I should have felt less alone. But instead, my stomach twisted, because now I knew. Mr. Smile wasn't just mine. She didn't give me names, but I started paying attention. Listening in at recess, in the lunchroom, on the bus. And that's when I noticed it. Kids whispering about a weird smell in their bedrooms. A dream they couldn't explain. Someone standing at the foot of their bed. One day, I worked up the courage to ask a boy in my class. He was quiet, kept mostly to himself. But when I brought up the name, Mr. Smile, his eyes lit up in recognition. "Oh yeah," he said, like I just asked about an old friend. "He comes when I'm sad." I felt my throat close up. The boy kept talking, like this was the most normal thing in the world. He told me that when he cried at night, Mr. Smile would show up. He never spoke, never moved, but somehow he made him feel better. I didn't understand. How could anyone feel better? And then I heard the same thing from another kid. And another. They said Mr. Smile made them feel warm. I felt none of that. When I saw him, I felt something leave me. Like I was being hollowed out, little by little. Like he was peeling something away from me, layer by layer. I never told the other kids that. I never asked if they felt it too. Because deep down, I was terrified of the answer. At first, I thought they were just tired of talking about him. The kids who once whispered about Mr. Smile stopped bringing him up. If I mentioned his name, they'd blink at me like I was speaking another language. Like they didn't remember. But I knew they had seen him. I had seen the fear in their faces, the unease in their voices. And yet, one by one, they moved on. Or worse, changed. There was a girl named David. He was one of the first kids who had told me about the smell, about the man who watched him sleep. He was shy, awkward, always fidgeting. But one day, he wasn't. One day, he came to school with a smile stretched across his face, humming a song none of us knew. I asked him if he still saw Mr. Smile. His grin didn't waver. His voice was light, airy, like he was talking about a pet he used to have. Who? I didn't ask again. More kids followed. Kids who used to flinch at shadows, who used to know something was wrong, suddenly didn't. They became happy. Too happy. The kind of happy that doesn't belong to kids who used to be scared. And then there was Lisa. Lisa had always been quiet, kept to herself. I liked her because she never looked at me like I was crazy. She understood. One afternoon, she pulled me aside, eyes darting nervously around the empty classroom. Her hands trembled as she clutched the straps of her backpack. "He talks to me." I remember feeling my stomach drop. Lisa's voice was barely a whisper. "He said he likes me best." I wanted to tell her to run, to never sleep again, to fight against whatever it was he was doing. But she was already shaking her head, already looking over her shoulder like she expected him to be there. And maybe he was. I went to Dr. Ellison. I told her everything. The missing memories. The changed kids. Lisa's confession. She smiled at me, too kindly, too softly, and said it was my imagination. That maybe I was seeing things that weren't there. I wanted to scream. Because I knew. Mr. Smile wasn't just watching. He was taking. Lisa was gone. No goodbyes. No warnings. Just a gone. Her mother said she had been in bed the night before, that everything had been normal. The window was locked. The door was shut. No sign of a struggle. Nothing disturbed. Except for the smell. Faint, clinging to the air, to the fabric of her pillows. That sickly sweet scent. Artificial. Playful. Cotton candy. I heard the grown-ups whispering about it. The police looked confused, kept saying things like, "No forced entry," and "no evidence of abduction." They asked if Lisa had ever run away before. If she'd been acting strange. If she had a reason to leave. I wanted to tell them. I wanted to scream at them. But I didn't. Because I knew they wouldn't believe me. They hadn't believed me when I told them about the other kids. They hadn't believed me when I said Mr. Smile was doing something to them. Why would they believe me now? Lisa was taken, and I was next. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I kept my eyes locked on the foot of my bed, barely blinking. I could almost convince myself I'd be safe if I just stayed awake. If I didn't move. If I didn't let him know I was afraid. But then, the smell came. Before I could even think about sleep, before my eyelids could even grow heavy, it was there. Seeping through the walls. Filling my lungs. I clenched my fists. I didn't look. I wouldn't look. But I knew he was there. I felt him. The air in the room changed, thickened. It felt full, like something else was sharing it with me. Standing close. Watching. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. And then, for the first time ever, he laughed. A sound so quiet, so wrong, it sent ice down my spine. It wasn't deep or loud. It wasn't a cackle or a roar. It was soft, breathless, almost amused. And then, nothing. The air cleared. The smell faded. And I was alone again. But I knew what it meant. He was done watching. It was my turn now. Lisa never came back. The town grieved for a while. Candlelight vigils. Missing posters on every telephone pole. Volunteers searching the woods, the rivers, the old abandoned buildings on the outskirts of town. But time moved on. It always does. The posters faded. The whispers died down. People stopped looking, stopped caring, stopped asking. And somehow, I was the only one who seemed to remember. Not just Lisa, him. I tried to talk about it once. Told my mother I was scared. That I felt like something had been taken from me, even if I didn't know what. She just looked at me, confused. Said I was doing better. That the nightmares had stopped. That the strange talk had stopped. She was relieved. I was terrified. Because she was right. The memories were slipping away, piece by piece, like sand through my fingers. I knew something had happened, but I couldn't hold on to the details. I couldn't remember. I used to be able to picture his face perfectly. Every sharp feature, every detail of that smile, stretched too wide across his face. But now he was just blurred edges in the back of my mind. A name without a face. A nightmare without a shape. But the fear never left. I didn't see him again. Not really. Not in the corner of my room. Not at the foot of my bed. Not in the dark spaces between streetlights when I walked home at night. But sometimes, just for a moment, I'd feel it. That thick, heavy stillness in the air. That quiet that wasn't just quiet. And then, the worst part. The part that sent me right back to being a child, frozen under my blankets. The smell. That sweet, artificial scent. Like carnival candy. Like childhood. Like something I was supposed to trust. I always told myself it was nothing. That it was all in my head. But deep down I knew. He was still there. And he never really left. Years passed. I told myself it was over. That it had been a childhood nightmare, nothing more. I even convinced myself that Lisa had simply run away. That she was out there somewhere, living a new life, far from this town. I wanted to believe that. But then, the reports started. Different towns. Different states. Missing children. No forced entry. No struggle. No clues. Except one. Parents would mention something strange. Something small, almost insignificant. A scent. Sweet. Artificial. Like carnival candy. The first time I heard it, my stomach dropped. The second time, I felt sick. By the third, I stopped reading the news altogether. But it didn't stop. It was happening again. And again. And again. And then, The email came. No sender. No subject. Just a single attachment. A child's drawing. Crude lines, shaky, like tiny hands had struggled to keep them straight. A figure, tall, looming, standing in the corner of the page. No eyes. No nose. Just a smile. Wide. Unnatural. Like it had been drawn first, before anything else. Below the drawing, 6 words. He still likes you best. I closed my laptop. Shut it off. Sat there in the dark for a long time, listening to my own breathing, trying to tell myself it wasn't real. But I knew better. I still know better. So, if you wake up in the middle of the night, and the room is too quiet, if the air feels heavy, pressing against your skin, and if you catch the faintest whiff of something sweet, something warm and sticky, like melted sugar on a summer night, don't move. Don't look. And whatever you do, don't smile back.